Mr. Chairman, well, I hope I don't put us in the ditch like every Republican president since Nixon has done. Every Republican administration since Nixon has left for their Democratic successors a worse deficit than they inherited. Every Democrat administration since Kennedy has left for their Republican successors a better deficit situation than they inherited. President Trump was on the way to doing that before the pandemic. President Biden is doing that already. So, let me see, Mr. Mazur, we've heard about inflation and blaming the president. How's the United States inflation rate compared to the rest of the world?
Generally, the U.S. inflation rate now is lower than other developed countries, like in Europe, for instance.
So we've got a global inflation problem, and we're actually doing better than most.
Relatively better, yep.
Mr. Mazur, do tax cuts affect the budget?
By arithmetic, yes, they affect the budget.
Well, some don't apparently believe in simple arithmetic like adding and subtracting, because you know that the under PAYGO that Democrats have as a budget rule, if you have a new spending, you have to pay for it with either new taxes or other spending cuts. Got to pay for it. If you have a tax cut, got to pay for it. Either raise somebody else's taxes or spending cuts to pay for it. Under the Republican plan, if you have a new spending plan, you have to pay for it. But if you have a tax cut, you don't have to pay for it. As if they didn't understand what you just said, that it's simple arithmetic. So, we've heard about taxing policy. Different tax cuts or different spending initiatives can stimulate the economy, but on a differential basis. Isn't it true that reducing taxes on dividends has a negligible effect as a stimulus to the economy?
Yeah, I would think that relative to other potential tax cuts, given who the owners of shares are, giving them a lower tax rate probably doesn't boost the economy that much, and probably doesn't change corporate behavior that much in terms of dividends paid.
And you said compared to other tax cuts, like what?
Well, if you're thinking you want to boost consumption, then you'd probably want to provide resources to people who are going to consume those tax cuts, so lower income, middle income people.
Like the child tax credit?
Child tax credit would be one example, and I think you saw when it was a refundable credit paid monthly that it had a pretty substantial benefit to the recipient families.
And the earned income tax credit?
Earned income tax credit, similar, though one caveat on the earned income tax credit is that for many years, the earned income tax credit has been used as a replacement for increasing the minimum wage, largely saying, we're not going to increase the minimum wage, but we're going to give you a tax credit instead. That works for the people who are eligible for the tax credit, but not those who don't have qualifying children living in their household.
And certain spending would have the same thing, like if you increased unemployment benefits, that would have a very good stimulus, or food stamps, increase that. That would go right back into the economy.
Generally true.
So we know which tax policies work and which ones don't work. Who basically benefited from the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, better known as the Trump tax scam?
So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed in 2017 had lots of moving parts. Basically, 2/3 of people in the country probably got a tax cut. The tax benefits for corporations were generally permanent. The tax benefits for individuals were generally temporary. I think there was a slightly larger proportional benefit to higher income people, in part because they benefit from the corporate tax cuts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.